Right, ladies and gentlemen, oh yes, a fantastic guest, all the way from County Tipperary. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Miss Aine Ryan.
Love it, Joe. How are you?
I have such a blast doing that every day. I do. I really like. I love the whole clap track and all that sort of stuff. I'm like a really unimaginative Graham Norton.
No, it's brilliant. It's fun.
How's the farm, Aine? How are you keeping?
I'm good, very good. How are you doing, Joe?
I'm not too bad. Yeah, I am day by day taking a new page and putting words to it. That's about it. It's the best way I can. A new paragraph every morning, and if it comes to something, it comes to something.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
You're just. Am I saying you're just off a bit of work with About Face?
Oh yeah, I did that that was on I think 3 weeks ago. They had the live performances, obviously via Zoom, and then they had the show was kind of on demand for the last 2 weekends. So yeah, that was really fun actually.
How'd you find working with them?
So nice. They were super nice. Yeah, so
really
nice.
nice.
Like obviously I wasn't acting in the play. I had written it. But I was really happy with how Paul directed it, the performances of the two actors, and how the whole show was delivered. So yeah, I was actually really, really happy with it. Yeah, they're super nice.
Yeah. How long were you writing that piece for? Is that something that's nearly like full-fledged, or is it something that's 3/4 the way there?
It was only a short piece because there was 8 different pieces, so it was only about 5 minutes long. So what they did was they chose their 8 writers, and then what happened was they only gave us like literally 1 week then there was a draw to find out who your actors were. So you just got paired with your 2 actors. I was delighted with the 2 actors I got. Because they had kind of similar, it was Gina Costigan and Noni Stapleton, and they had kind of a similar casting. Like they could have been sisters or friends, or they kind of had the similar age bracket and that kind of thing. So so I went for a piece. I wrote it for the 2 of them, and it was about 2 friends. And like the idea of Transatlantic Tales is that one is in America and the other is in Ireland. So I wrote a piece about a woman who's in New York with her boyfriend and is waiting for him to propose to her and thinks this is the week. And then she does a Zoom call with her friend. Her friend is like waiting to see, has it finally happened? And it's basically just kind of a conversation about that. And then Jilly, who played by Gina, who's in America, kind of tells her some other news. And then it's just about friendship and reaction towards, I guess, challenges in life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was pretty happy with it.
No, it sounds fucking great, and I know if the lads picked it, it was definitely like quality. I worked with the lads About Face. I worked with them in 2018. And it was I think it was one of the last years they were doing the live ones because of what happened. And I remember going in, and there was such a strong actor base in there. Like I remember walking in and says, all right, these are some strong actors here. And then the scripts that they were given, they weren't like off script or anything. These were like full-fledged. One of them was a novel that was turned into a play script. And I was like, wow, okay, here we go. And I remember we had like 2 rehearsals or something like that, like, because it was a read-through of it. And on the night of the show, I was in Bettystown or Mornington, and it was heavy rain, and it was fucking disastrous. And the buses that I was supposed to get on, for some reason, just didn't turn up.
Oh no! So
I'm on the phone, so I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to make this. I don't know what's happening. Like, I'm soaked. My umbrella got blown out of my hand. It was cracked. It was fucking absolutely like pissed on. It's disgraceful. And I was like, I'm ringing my best mate. I'll give you like, I think it was like 100 quid, like to get Dublin from where it was. Like, I said, I'll pay you. Like, I said, no, I'm not around. And the last bus that came, I might have just missed. So I jumped on that. I said, if he can make every green light, and I might just make it. I ran into Penny's and grabbed the first 2 things that were on the rack. Like it was a green camo jumper and a pair of tracksuit bottoms. So I walked in.
Oh,
I walked in looking like G.I. Joe for a love romantic story. I was like, oh Jesus Christ, this is terrible.
that's fun though. They're the things you remember.
I remember, one of the actresses, she felt so bad for me that she had a spare pair of socks in her bag, and she just handed, like, she kind of shuffled them underneath the seat. Here's a pair of socks for you, Joe. And I'm like,
oh, that's so annoying.
Oh,
oh my goodness. Wow. But it all probably went well all the same.
It was a good night. Absolutely. Those guys were fantastic. I met some great people there, and it was, the way they run things was very well done.
That's brilliant. Yeah, same with, like, one really good thing we had for Transatlantic Tales was afterwards they ran a green room so that all the writers and actors could talk about how the show went after the show, which I thought was really nice, because obviously you probably want to digest and get to meet the other actors in the other plays and the other writers. So I think that was really good, considering everything was on Zoom. It was just good with what they made from something that had to be online.
Yeah.
That still, it had like a nice atmosphere to it, and we got to kind of mingle and stuff. So that was really good.
And how did you find? Because I know you've been working on screen. You were studying. You might have done this. So like, how did that work? Because like I know you as a playwright.
Yeah.
How was that transition? Because you're going to be writing for screen. Was it easier because of your recent studies?
Well, because the good thing about I've done 2 plays in December and October as well that were also via broadcast via Zoom.
Yeah.
And one was where, the way like people are supposed to be on a beach. It's not that the people are actually on Zoom, like it's just a play, but it just randomly is online. But still like via Zoom. So it's not, so that was hard, because you're saying, oh, is this any good for the audience? Because can they like believe it, or what way is it? But I think when you're actually writing for knowing that it's a Zoom call between 2 people, you can write those things like, hey, like, obviously I wasn't writing, can you turn your camera on or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was still good, because we knew it was a call, and I think that made it easier. But so I don't know really how much in terms of, it was like obviously for screen, but more in a theatre format.
Yeah.
But definitely after doing the course on film and TV production, I think I understand so much better now how to write for screen, and how visual it is. And even just learning how to edit has really helped me in terms of understanding. Like, I remember recording one of the first things we ever did for the screen course, and I was like, but how do you get the emotion? Because like, you're just filming from so far back. Like, I hadn't even it in my head that, no, that's when you need to do the close-ups, and that's when you really need to get the emotion from the actor. You can't just be filming from like a 5-meter distance and expecting the audience is going to understand. Anyway, whatever I was doing then, I was like, wow, like now I feel I've acquired so much knowledge. But even for certain things, like I do feel over the pandemic, even like for making short films and various things like that, I do feel I like did so many workshops and so many different things, even in the past year. Even my writing, I think, has improved so much that it's amazing to think, like when you think back and you're like, what was I thinking then? And then you say like, oh, a year later, then when you reread that thing, you're like, oh, do you know what? Like, I actually have improved, even though sometimes you're thinking, what did I spend my time the last? So it's good when you're like, do you know what? I actually understand those things now. So that's good. But yeah, for this, it was more theatrical, but I do agree that obviously I think I have improved writing for screen from, because actually one of the pieces I did for the theatre event, I actually made it as a short film as well.
Yeah.
But the only thing was it was in reverse order. I had it for the screen first, and then I kind of changed it to a theatre script. And I nearly wish it was the theatre script first, because then I think I could have adapted it better for screen, like for the actual film.
Yeah.
But anyway, you learn those things as you go on. All you can do is try, and you learn as you go, I think.
Is screen somewhere where you think that's going to be your kind of future efforts, where your energy is going to go, like?
I think so, but I also think definitely theatre is one of my main priorities.
Yeah.
Definitely. I like screen as well, but what I love about theatre, especially writing for it, is obviously it is collaborative when you take it off the page to the stage.
Yeah.
But I do love okay, I know screenwriting is like that as well, that you can write it and it's changed. But for example, I've just done this project for Engine Shorts with filmmakers in Limerick, Tipperary, Clare. So a producer comes in and a director comes in, and obviously they have different visions as well, and you kind of all work together to create the script, even though obviously I'm the one as the script writer.
Yeah.
But with theatre, it feels that there's still more control via the playwright. And not that I'm a control freak, because obviously everyone else's notes do help you.
Yeah.
I just like the idea that you can literally like have a few days to yourself for writing a play or something, and it still feels like completely yours. But maybe I just haven't done that much script writing yet, like in the sense that I have yet to see like something that I have one or two shorts, but a few things that I've completely written to see on screen and being like, oh yeah, now I see that is still my voice completely there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of like trying to like have a career or whatever, I do think if you can mix screen and theatre with writing, obviously like it opens up more avenues for you to like bring in money and have an income and all of those kind of things. So I do want to do that, but I definitely won't be like placing theatre to the side or anything, because I do absolutely love it.
You kind of brought up a point there about being able to see your work and stuff, and being able to like actually vision an avenue with theatre, because I know from the first show I know you from was Kitty in the Lane.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I kind of grasp on as myself, is that like I can write, but I write with me performing it in mind, because I know I'm going to perform, so I know my traits. Okay. Have you like written something that you haven't been in at all? Is that something? Yeah. Is that how did you find that? Because that seems to be like a harder take of writing, especially for theatre, because you know your strengths, you know which way you can see that.
Yeah, that's so true. My last few plays have been all written without me, because they're maybe older characters, or I just don't see myself in them. So like Paddy Goes to Petra was a one-man show for like a man in his 50s/60s. So I worked with another actor from Cork on that, and that was really fun. And to be honest, it's so nice. Obviously, it's such hard work, because I was the director of that as well. But it's so nice on the night of the play that you're like, obviously, I was so nervous as well, and I was side stage like with the script, like doing the prompt reading or like giving him prompts if he didn't need any, but just in case. But like there is something kind of nice about not having that to go on stage and deliver it all. So I do like that aspect. But yeah, I agree. It's handy if you're writing for yourself, that you know what kind of actor you are. So it kind of helps you build a character.
Yeah.
Because there's only, you know what you can do, and you can kind of frame that around you. But to be honest, I rarely write something now for myself. Like I almost, not that I don't do it, but I've tried a few even like short film scripts, but then I'm always like, I'm kind of at the moment in a place where I don't know, I've tried to experiment with directing, obviously producing I do anyway, because it's kind of necessary. But writing is definitely my core thing. But the good thing about being able to act is that like you save a lot of money when you're the actor yourself.
Yeah, no, that's another is another thing.
That is a massive thing. People don't realize that. But supposing you were to get someone else to act, you have to follow someone else's schedule, which is very hard sometimes, especially if it's a small show and you're trying to bring it one night here, 3 nights there, blah, blah. You know, it's hard to get someone to commit to that, another actor. Whereas if it's just you, it's like, okay, well, I can do that. And I've written it, like I see the character, I can do it. It just makes it so much easier. So people sometimes forget that, yes, you might love another actor, but that's going to start costing like a lot of money. Like if you're bringing in someone, you know.
That's one thing I kind of gathered, is the self-producing aspect of it. Like I remember writing it and thinking to myself, like I'd write myself into a small role because in my head I was like, am I being too narcissistic writing myself into a leader role in a production? And I had to myself, I'll write this for someone else, and then I realized I have to pay this person because I'm self-producing, and then I have to look at their schedule, because like I could have these ideas, like I can actually get this stage for a couple of days, this stage over here for a couple of days, but can they do it? And will, like, how much is that going to cost me? And I'm like, all right, this is actually not plausible at the moment at all.
Yeah.
Which is, it's highly stressing.
Yeah, unless you've obviously, like, I guess as you kind of go on and hopefully build a career a bit, it does get easier to maybe get funding and all of those kind of things. So then it becomes easier to maybe even have an outside producer. Obviously, trying to do everything yourself is so hard, and it doesn't always work. But yeah, like, I do think obviously acting in your own stuff can be really good because you understand the character so much, you kind of can define it. But at the same time, the way you do realize sometimes then that in the middle of the performance you're like, oh sugar, I said that line wrong, or I should be changing this line, doesn't sit. So you have to nearly say, okay, goodbye writer, hello actor. So sometimes maybe like you just need to be clear what is the two ways. But I think it can be done, and so many actors are really good writers because you understand dialogue and you've got a really good feel for how things should be said. But likewise, loads of writers are good actors as well, so it's a mix. But yeah, at the moment, the things I'm writing, I don't actually see myself in them. But let's see, I obviously still do like to act, so it would be nice to do even one or two things every year, maybe even if they were small things. But I just I have a new play now that I'm almost finished. It's a cast of 5, and there's 2 female characters in it. One I couldn't play, but the other I probably could. But at the same time, I don't foresee myself in the role. But supposing it didn't get funding, or it doesn't, no other companies or anything pick it up, and I do have to like self-produce it in a small venue or something. Well, it depends if I was the director then or not. I probably wouldn't be the director. But then maybe if it was to save money, or if I was like, you know what, I would do that as good as someone else, maybe then I'd be like, yeah, maybe I'll do that. But at the moment, no, I haven't been really writing anything that much for myself, other than some short films, but I need to do a bit of work on them still.
That's
such a long answer.
No, it's the right answer though, because they kind of delves into the producing side of it, which I wanted to ask you about. Because because you said, well, first of all, it's like a 3-part, like, was it a natural occurrence when you started writing with other people in mind rather than yourself, or was it something that you like kind of forced yourself to do? Was it something that just naturally came upon you unbeknownst, or was it?
Yeah, it was natural, because I just have ideas for stories. Like I would just have ideas for stories. Like, for example, for Paddy Goes to Petra, I went to Jordan. It was 2018, 2019, that kind of Christmas, New Year. And I just loved the place so much. And I just felt such a connection there. And I just got this whole story into my head, when you have a rush of creative juice or something. And you're just like, oh yeah, this story. And it just came down. And now I'm thinking to myself, why wasn't it like Patricia Goes to Petra? Or like, why did I write from a male perspective and an older male perspective? Like, I don't even know why I did that. But it was just like, it just like came to me like, this is the story, this is the main character. So obviously I knew from the get-go there that like, this is the story of a middle-aged man. So definitely it comes natural if I'm writing for other characters. I nearly find it harder now to imagine myself in a role. Yeah,
that's probably the best way of having it then, isn't it? Like, from a writing perspective, because it kind of opens more tools. There's more tools in that bag then.
Yeah, definitely. Have you written anything now for other people?
I have 4. I've done scratches and stuff like that, and sample that, like, where I had to force myself to write. But even then, I could sense the style of dialogue was coming from a place that I've already written, so I had to kind of step back from it. I find writing pieces with more than 4 characters, I find it difficult. Because I'm trying to grasp every character and seeing like, okay, what's their back, like where they're going, where they're coming from within the narrative, and how it all meshes together, which I find it fucking like I get like 3 characters in, my mind's fucking gone. Like, it's also another thing that has the producing costs, has that ever intervened in your writing? So have you been writing some, because I know this has happened to me before, where I thought like I can write this, and then like I have this idea, and then I realized, okay, we're not going to be able to afford that, and probably can't do that, so I'm gonna have to change this in the script, like as I'm writing it. Has that ever happened to you? Or
never really in the writing, but obviously when you go to put a show on, like for example, like, well, I'd be very confident artistically anyway, in terms of like sets or something like that. Like before, when I was a child, before, obviously I always liked writing and stuff, but I was always really into art. So supposing, just for example, something like a set, I'd always, now I'm like, oh yeah, definitely I'd probably need a set designer, because it's just too much hassle yourself. But for example, for Paddy Goes to Petra, like I didn't even think twice about the set. I was just like, oh, I'll definitely, like, I'll figure that out. And I was really happy with our set for that. But then again, obviously then, like, if you were to get someone in to do that, it's like another few €1,000, and all of those things in terms of sound, like I'm lucky I have my sisters, like played music for that. So I'm lucky I have a few people I can kind of bring in and do favors to do those kind of things. But yeah, I think obviously, like, for example, there's no way I would probably be able to put on a 5-person show, unless I did it some sort of way that all the actors, like, supposing it didn't get funding, and it would still be so hard, because like you're trying to get people to commit for several weeks to rehearse, and like people aren't probably going to commit for weeks. You might get a few days off someone, and they do it as a favor, but like you can't exactly ask someone to take a month out of their life to like obviously be in a play for free. Like obviously you can't have that. So all of those things, now it's just about actually getting the funding for them, or getting like a producer on board and all of that. So definitely, like, it's always in the back of your mind, but I try not to write thinking of that. But for example, for like, again, Paddy Goes to Petra, I knew it was a one-man show. I knew, okay, that's going to be like cost effective, because it's going to be paying one person basically to perform on stage. Whereas if it's if it's a 5-person show, it's just way out of reach. Like if you're spending your own money, unless you're funded. So definitely from that perspective. But now I'm just like, do you know what? Just write what you have, and then hopefully, work on it from there. And I suppose as you can kind of establish yourself a bit more, or like, more people kind of know your work and might be willing to take a chance on it. Then you, like, they won't be scared of big casts, because maybe they'll be able to fund something like that. So that's what I'm trying to think of.
Because I know I'm trying to think, is Paddy Goes to Petra your second one performer script? Because I know Katie was one, and then have you done 3 shows in between that?
3 shows in between, and they were a cast of 2 and 3. So Paddy Goes to Petra was the next 1-person show.
Out of all the pieces you've created, is there one that stands out as the strongest piece of text, the one that you kind of look back and go, I'm actually really...
I think definitely Kitty in the Lane. Maybe it's just because it was my first one, but I'm definitely kind of proudest of that play. And it's kind of the play that I feel kind of stays with me. But then, like, you often have people saying, I really enjoy, like, for example, for Up the Hill Jackie, which I did with Erin, my sister. Like, a lot of people will tell me that they really, really enjoyed that play, because it was kind of, I mean, it was sad, but it was funny. But the thing was as well is that it was kind of, I would like to rewrite it, but it was a bit about, it was of its time, because it's about 2 sisters going to London, and one of them is having an abortion. Whereas now they'd be like, I could just move it to Dublin, but they'd probably be like, why don't you just go to your local town? Like, it's kind of, it has time, like it has aged slightly. I'm really proud of Paddy Goes to Petra. I really like that script, but obviously it's only been performed the one time, because it happened just before the pandemic. So, like, for example, I'm trying to arrange dates this summer for like one particular festival, but like the venue just got back and said like the max capacity they can have is 8 people.
Oh, fucking
so
hell.
like obviously between like insurance, like
like
all those things, like you're going to just, obviously it's not about the money, but at the same time you can't just
cancelling everything out by doing like it's
the amount of time that goes into getting the show back up. So there's all those things. So we'll probably have to wait a little while longer for that show to kind of bloom again. But yeah, but I'm proud of all the different pieces. Like
you went to Edinburgh with Kitty.
And Up the Hill Jackie, yeah.
And Up the Hill Jackie. You done Dublin with, I remember I went to Dublin, in Dublin with, what was the
that
Dublin?
Was with Templemore.
Templemore.
Yeah.
And Paddy Goes to Petra. Where do you foresee that?
The Source.
In the Source, yeah. Well, I like the Source because Source is your home theatre too.
Exactly, yeah. So I nearly do all, so far I've kind of premiered all the shows there. So that's really good because obviously it's good to get kind of a home audience and kind of test it out first. And yeah, it's nice. It's nice to do it there because it's kind of a comfortable setting, and usually like it always, like there's always a full house and everything. So it's just nice to kind of start it off in a good way rather than, you know, playing into like an empty hall or something like that. So it's actually still, you get a good crowd and they're generally supportive. And people are interested in seeing the work because there's not really a huge amount of playwrights or like people putting on shows around other than obviously like amateur drama or whatever. So that's good. So hopefully I can keep that connection, but maybe as plays get bigger, or as like I'm mad to produce something from scratch and like debut it in London. Just to see how, like, get like a 3-week run or something there, just to kind of see how it would go for an audience there. But obviously we had wanted to go to Edinburgh this year with Paddy Goes to Petra, but again, like the Fringe isn't really, it's on this year, but not really in the same way.
Yeah, it's on, but it's not on.
That kind of thing. So then we just decided, like, again, a lot of venues were like, the capacity is going to be so low, and I'm not sure what the situation is now, but like about a month or two when I was like trying to organize a few things, they were saying that like they still don't know any guidelines from the Scottish government about how many people would be allowed in a venue.
Especially those venues, they're very cramped and tight knit as well. That's their design. Like they're to be so fucking immersive with the audience. So it's
exactly. So suppose there should have been, if there was supposed to be 50 people in the audience, like that would probably be dropped down to 20. And then obviously it's hard to get an audience in Edinburgh anyway. So you might only have, let's say, 10. Not that it matters about the audience numbers, but at the same time, if the same amount of reviewers aren't like coming up from London, or producers or people that might program it in other venues, then we just said maybe it's better. Hopefully we'll get to go next year. But let's see.
I do find that I think I'm not sure if I had this kind of, like, I do find that the English audience is more receptive to Irish work than sometimes the Irish audience is. I think the Irish audience is, because they've seen it so much, that they kind of blasé over it, where the English they actually listen because they're interested, because they don't really know the story, so they're more in tune with it, and you end up with a more flourishing response in England, and that's when the Irish take notice, so you come back with the response.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's so nice to put your work in front of audiences that don't know you kind of culturally who you are, don't know you, like aren't a relative of a friend or someone that's randomly sent to the show. Like it's always fascinating that someone might have just seen the show in the program, like took a chance on it, came to the show, and then if they enjoy it, you're like, wow, like I can't believe that, like someone that's a random stranger is actually like has spent their money, sat down for an hour or whatever amount, and actually watched the show and enjoyed it. So I think you get really good like critique in that way, because it's like someone that doesn't owe you anything by saying that, oh, you're good, when like they're just saying that to be nice or whatever. Like they're actually, you get like a really honest critique. So I think that's so good to be able, and I think we don't realize actually how lucky we are in Ireland that we actually just live next to a country with obviously such a big population and like such a strong history of plays and theatre and stuff, that it is easy for us to just bring over a show if we want to, because obviously there's only, obviously Ireland is great and there is audiences here too, but we have another place to bring the shows if necessary as well, which I think is really good.
When you started writing, so this is I always find that people in like the southern of Ireland, because you live in a remote, I consider you live in a remote part of Thurles.
Yeah.
Where, so like if you don't drive, you're kind of there and you have to kind of create your own kind of joy as a child, I presume. Is that what kind of guided you into the world of writing and imagination and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, like my mom is actually pretty good to write, even though she doesn't do much. And my dad obviously is very like, he's kind of funny and good to tell stories.
Yeah.
And then like my granduncle was used to write a lot of poetry, and we have, I mean, dozens of his. He used to write like for the local paper, and he used to write like so much poetry, like every little match or event, or like when someone was born or whatever, he'd write a poem about it.
All right.
So I think, and my uncle has actually written a few plays as well, just for like a local drama group.
Yeah.
So I think like we're all kind of, and my cousin is like involved in theatre, and just a load of my family are kind of into writing anyway, like not in any kind of professional capacity, but just, you know, as a hobby or whatever. But yeah, I do agree that definitely, like when I was growing up, we still didn't have internet. Like, I know that sounds ancient, and I'm not that, but like I was only a teenage, no, maybe when I was around 11 or 12, I remember because my parents aren't like computer people at all. Like they're not into computers at all or anything like that. So I remember first our cousins had a computer, and we used to go down and like play games on that or whatever. But other than that, we didn't have one until I maybe went into secondary school. And even then the internet was so slow that it would just break your heart doing anything. So I think definitely I remember we used to play games, and obviously I've got 4 sisters and we're all like close in age. So like we used to play together in the garden and all of that kind of thing. And one of the games we used to play, like we used to like make up ads from the telly. Like make up an ad on like peanut butter or whatever. And so much fun. I absolutely loved doing that. I remember being like, oh my God, like this is me in my element. And also in school, I was always like really into drama and really into like being in the school plays, and mainly in primary school now, but really being into you know, like any dramatic exercise. Like I just loved that kind of thing. So I always had it, like I was always into that from a child, definitely. And obviously like with music as well, I don't know, there was always like good kind of creativity there.
That's one thing I got from your house. I remember when I went down to do the short. Yeah, the film. Yeah. Well, speaking of the internet, I remember your sister having her phone on the window. I was like, why is your sister's phone hanging out the window? It's because she needs the internet. But I remember like in the house, it was just every kind of nook and cranny was something creative. It was something different. And I'm like out in the bar where it's like it's this kind of, it's damn near a famous bar at this rate, isn't it? In Tip, like it's such a
it's unique.
Yeah, definitely. It's a unique bar, and like you've got this whole creative space where it's kind of it's emphasized, or it's kind of encouraged to be creative. It's not putting down. It's everything's kind of be everything, throw everything at it, and you'll eventually do it. Like
yeah, that's exactly it. Like thank God, like you know the way at least my parents, well, not that your parents decide your future or anything, but like I've never had any pressure not to do something like this, which is good. You know, the way like at least I've never felt that, oh, I should probably be doing something else, or you know, at least it's respected. And no, thank God, at least I think my family is like that. But I think more and more people, I think as like hopefully society learns more, like you realize how important art is. And like, you know, you forget how amazing it is to go to a show, like a really good theatre show that actually like just sparks your imagination, or shows you a different thought, or like just kind of some like philosophical idea that you mightn't previously be exposed to, or kind of what it's like to live in someone else's shoes. Like even like obviously movies and things like that are so good for that as well. Just to like, you forget how important it is to hear other people's stories, and how you can then like incorporate that into your own life in terms of being more like respectful to other people. But yeah, long answer, but yeah, definitely I've always been kind of into creative stuff, and always from a child, because of my family and my sisters and everything.
And when you think all this is lifted and some sort of normality kind of comes back into it, will you be in Ireland the majority of your time, or will you pop back over to London?
I'm going to go to South America, hopefully as
You
soon.
travel, you go everywhere. I'm amazed. You have seen the world. You honestly have seen the world.
No, yeah, I know. Travel is my absolute, in conjunction with like writing and stuff like that. Travel is my absolute passion. Like, I was always into traveling from a child. Like, I always would beg my parents to bring us, like, they were great for bringing us places, but they weren't into like foreign trips.
Yeah.
And when I was about 11 or 12, my cousin moved to Germany, and I was like, that's it. Like, we have to go visit her. And I always used to think, oh God, will that leave me? But it has never, ever left me. It's just something in my brain or in my head that I just love to travel. Like, I feel my best. I love it. Even when I was heading, obviously, to Colombia the last time, pre-pandemic, I was like, the second I got on the plane, I was like, I just felt so good. I was like, oh my God, like, I feel like a new kind of wave comes over me. Like, I'm very happy at home and I enjoyed and everything, but it's like an extra level of satisfaction comes on me. So I'm going to go back to South America. Hopefully, hopefully the countries will allow like tourists in and everything. But like, I'm not sure, but like, I wouldn't mind seeing a long-term future for me in somewhere like Mexico or in South America. Like, I've been to Mexico before. I love it there.
Yeah.
I love the hot climate. I love to like explore different places, but then obviously the one thing is that then you're trying to balance like work and travel. So I can still write and all of those things over there, but suppose and then a play was to be on in Ireland or something, I'd probably have to come back. So I'll try and strike a balance where I can kind of mix the two. But yes, I have a few things until, let's say, the end of August. That I'll be in Ireland for, hopefully doing another short the end of August, a short film. And I have this play that obviously is finished now that I'm trying to, I just have a bit more work to do with it. But then I'm going to really try hard to get that in someone's hands that can produce it, or like just get it off the ground myself if there's no other ways to do that. But then I'm ready to rock. Yeah.
Columbia, on the Columbia March in no time. On the Columbia March, that's because every time, I think it's every so often, like I'll either, let's say Anya's doing something, or I'll chat to Emily and I'm like, well, what's going on there? And I was like, oh, she's in a different country. Or that time in London where I'm literally casually walking down through, was it Borough Market?
Around Borough Market. Yeah, that was really nice.
That was great. Like, that was such a day, that was.
You never bump into anyone really in London, but I really did that, like, unless you plan to meet them. So that was so nice. That was lovely.
I looked across and you were impressed, and I'm like, that's Anya. And then I ended up on you were doing the tours, the night out tours.
Oh yeah. Oh, you done that. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Mother of Jays. I seen more of the nightlife in that night than I had in about 12 months of actually being in London.
No, I forgot about that. That was really fun.
I remember having to Joe, you don't have a wrist. I didn't have a wristband or something at one point, and you're like, Joe, just pretend you work for us. And I'm like, right, guys, let's go. We're going in. And I'm like, having a clue.
When was that again? 2000? Was that 2000? And
I was it might have been 2018, 17 or 18, maybe early.
Yeah, I can't remember. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that was really fun. Do you know what? I had remembered meeting you, but I forgot about that. That was gas.
Yeah, I remember. Because I get reminded of it nearly every day, because we got paired, because I was on my own, and I was like, last minute, there was another American guy that was doing a track. His name was Alex, and he said, you two guys are just used to have a chat, and we ended up having a chat, and all night we were just chatting away. He added me on Snapchat, which I still have him on Snapchat.
Okay.
And at the end of the night, he was like, I was looking for you because I think you'd finished. I got lost. I ended up in a different place, and I'd come back. Annie's gone home, right. And he was wearing the face off some other fella, and he's like, "This is terrible. I thought you were gay, Joe. The whole night I thought you were gay." And this is now, and he's with some Spanish fella.
Recollection to that. That was funny. That was so funny. Yeah, I still have so many free drink tokens that I'm like so annoyed I haven't used. I'm just like, I wonder will I get away with them if I use them. But I don't think so. Somehow they'll probably change their marketing.
Yeah, no, that was a cracking night. I remember
one time. But the amount of people I met doing the pub crawl that had such interesting stories, like especially if it was a quiet night. And like obviously I did write some of them down, but you know when people just share kind of some of their personal histories or their personal, well, that's the great thing about like writing plays or writing stories or something, is that like everything you come across like is potential material.
Yeah.
And just you'd remember some stories that would just really stand out, and you'd be like, oh my god, like I have to remember that story and hopefully write it down and use it in a future date, obviously mixing things up so it's kind of fiction.
Yeah.
But like it does give you so much inspiration, like you know the way. So it's amazing when inspiration strikes. Like sometimes you have, well, I have anyway, these massive dry spells where I'm like, I can't think of anything to write, or like what is a worthy story.
Yeah.
But you could just be in the most random place or having like a kind of a conversation with like, you know, you don't expect it's not going to mean anything. You're not like hunting for material or anything. And the person could just like drop in a comment or a story, and that could be your next play or your next, like for this play that I'm writing at the moment. Well, that's finished. It's kind of a working title, so I don't really have the title on it. But I remember I was in Naples in Italy and I saw something on Facebook, and that's what gave me the whole idea. Like the whole idea came
the whole concept.
From a certain post. Like obviously, like this play has been going on for about 2.5 years now. But the initial concept came from a certain person posting a certain thing on Facebook. I saw it, and then just all of a sudden my brain just went like fireworks.
Yeah.
You know the way things like that are they're really good when something like that happens. But obviously then you have to do the difficult work of turning that into like a play or a piece of art or whatever. But still, I think that's just such a magic thing when something like that just goes, you know, like bang, and you're able to get it, you know.
What happens? What do you do when you get like writer's block, as they say, if that does happen?
Well, before I used to be quite like very disciplined in terms I'd have like, and I do like a bit of discipline, but I'd nearly be like, okay, you have to sit like at the laptop or sit with your notebook or whatever for a certain amount of hours.
Yeah.
And like you can't be going off doing things because like you're trying to work here and get things done.
Yeah.
But then I just realized is like that you kind of have to live life in terms of like, it's nearly like that's kind of your job to go out there and see different things. So I use that, I don't know, is that an excuse? But I'm like, oh, if I want to go out or whatever I want to do, I'm like, you know what, that's kind of like training myself. But one thing that I do is that I do read a serious amount of plays myself. I'd be reading things all the time. I'd watch a lot of TV shows. Even if I'm just like, even if it's not really my thing, but I skip through it like a TV show, maybe I'd just be like, but definitely reading helps me a lot because other people's work would inspire me. And I might just read even a page, like, you know, the way if you write someone's work that you really, really admire, sometimes just a few sentences that they've written is enough to trigger me to be like, oh my God, yeah, now I know where I'm going with that or whatever. And also when people, like obviously when people give feedback, if you're supposing like your script done and you're feeling like really like you don't know where the hell to go with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes just having someone else's eye on it will tell you, okay, obviously sometimes they'll give you the wrong advice and it could like not ruin a project, but you have to be careful.
That's the challenge, that is, trying to differentiate between good feedback and bad feedback.
And like, you know, the way it's like anything, it's just taking different roads. Like one road will lead you one place and another road will lead you the other place, but which road are you going to actually take for the piece? So that's what I kind of do to get out of, if I feel like uninspired or if I'm waiting for something. I think reading other people's work is really inspiring.
Who in particular have you read recently that's kind of jumped out at you?
I read a play. What did I read the other day? Oh, it was called Detroit. Let me get the playwright. I like a lot of American playwrights, and I often just go on to maybe like various awards or things like that, and I find out who has I just want to get the name of this playwright. But it was a really kind of interesting play about it was four in the cast, and it was one couple that were in rehab, and they move into this couple they move into a house to a couple next door. So I thought that was a really interesting play. I've been reading a lot of Samuel D. Hunter. Do you know him? He's an American playwright. Absolutely love his work. He's got this brilliant play called The Whale. Now, he's got a lot of brilliant plays, but he's got this one play called The Whale, and it's about a man like suffering from serious obesity. And it's a play I'd love to actually see the stage version of.
Yeah.
But so I was there like a few months ago reading a lot of his other plays. But he's really, really good. Who else have I been reading? I'm reading What Katie Did at the moment. You know that it's like a kind of a classic children's book.
No. What's
Yeah, it's an American book. It's by Susan. Try to go over at my bookshelf now to see what. Sorry, I'm looking at my bookshelf now.
That's no, go over it.
I'm reading The Blood Miracles, Lisa McInerney.
No.
I actually haven't finished that yet, but I listened via audiobook to her first novel, The Glorious Heresies. I think that was the first one. That was really, really good. Obviously, that's not a play, it's a novel, but I thought she really captured kind of Cork life and just real, like, ordinary characters. Obviously kind of involved in drugs and all these different things, but I just thought it was kind of a really good capture of different like human emotions and a group of people. So I really enjoyed that. So I'm reading that at the moment. I'm reading Ali Smith, How to Be Both. I'm here just reading off.
Yeah, look at it. Yeah.
E.M. Reapy. I read her previous novel, Red Dirt.
Right.
And this one is called Skin. I started it and I've yet to finish it, but I absolutely loved Red Dirt. This is a novel now.
Okay.
It's about Irish people in Australia. And I thought she did a really good job. It's like 3 different stories that kind of weave together. Really, really enjoyed that. And I'm really excited to read more of Skin because it's about a girl who kind of travels and she ends up in Australia. But I really like her writing because I think it's almost like something I'd nearly write.
Yeah.
The kind of way she uses language and stuff.
And is reading novels compared to like theatre, how do you find one more engaging with yourself and being able to write? Because I know, like, I find reading plays, I'd read a lot more plays than I would novels. Yeah.
I read a massive mix of both. Because like, obviously I've never written a book or anything before, but I came up with this idea for a children's book.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I think if I could get it done right, that it actually could be really good. And I've been tipping at it away for like the last few months. And that has just come to me in the idea of a book. Like I'm trying to see maybe I could write it as a screenplay. It might be slightly easier because I maybe know that world a bit better. But I've always loved novels and I always read novels. Like it's kind of like my bedtime reading is a novel, whereas reading theatre, like I absolutely adore as well. But I'm always really like scrutinizing what they say. And, you know, I'm looking at it more analytically, whereas with novels, I do that as well, but I do read them more in terms of like kind of like a pleasure read as well.
Yeah.
But that's funny that you don't read as many novels. Like how many novels would you say you'd read?
Throughout the year, probably only 4.
Okay.
3 or 4. But if I'd pick up a play and I'd read the play. I don't know. I think it's the setting that I like. I think I can depict the setting, like everything's kind of laid, the kind of I consider like setting and stuff like that, the kind of not like the more background stuff where the dialogue is what's kind of telling me the intellect, so it's right in my face what's happening. Oh, he said that, she said. I was like, oh, and I'm kind of like, it's a little bit more spicier in my mind sometimes, you know.
That's true.
So I find it a little bit more engaging rather than, because when I read a novel, for some reason I get lost with all of the descriptive with it. Like it's Michael, brown hair, blue eye, and it goes on about he had a feather in his hat back in 1822, and that's where I kind of lose a little bit of interest in it, because in my mind, it's because I'm a performer. I always contribute the look to a costume designer or a character design, where I'll put the spin on the character.
Okay.
I'll kind of have an idea. So if he's wearing blue, what kind of blue is he? I can depict what kind of blue he's wearing. I'm not being exactly told.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I know there's a lot of people. It's so funny that are like write for theatre and stuff themselves, and they say they find it so hard to write plays. Like they can't read plays. Yeah. They don't. Whereas I wouldn't, like, obviously I do like to see plays. Oh, I watched a play the other night. Well, I've been watching a good few like digital things. I watched To the Lighthouse. It was on in the Everyman. It was kind of a part of Cork Midsummer. That was really good. And I want to read that book now, by Virginia Woolf.
Yeah.
But it was nice to just see the stage version. So I kind of got an idea of what it's about. And I know obviously it's such a classic novel that I should read it. But often, like I'd love a lot of, obviously it's nice to read the classics, but I definitely love contemporary writing, because like you said, some of those descriptions, they're like boring and blah blah, they're brilliant, but for some people they're not into them. Whereas if you can find, there are so many brilliant novelists that will just like suck you in, and they are writing, and like they're going 100 miles an hour, and it is so exciting, and you just can't wait to like, you just can't stop until you finish the book. So it's just all about, I guess, for plays as well, for absolutely everything. Like I was going to ask you, do you read much poetry? I'll ask you that in a second, but it's like anything, I guess there's so much variety out there. It's just finding the kind of things you match with. But also it's nice to read books that you don't particularly match with, because then you realize, okay, well, if I'm writing, I don't want to be doing this because I'm not enjoying that when I read it myself. That's what I do anyway. Like if there's a book that I'm like, oh God, how will I get through this? Well, sometimes I just don't. But sometimes I'm like, you know what, stick with it, because then you learn a lot in books that you don't really like. Why didn't you like it, or why didn't it speak to you?
Yeah. I remember I got a book, was it last year, and I knew after, I actually got 2 books, and I knew after about 30 pages of both that I wasn't going to be able to stomach this. Like one of the books I got halfway through, and the other book I actually finished. But like the struggle of trying to get through a book, like it can be torturous. Like if it's a book you don't like and it's not connecting with you, you're kind of force reading pages just to kind of finish the story, I suppose, in that aspect. Like,
oh yeah, no, there is nothing worse than having to like go through each page and you're just like, no. Same with a bad movie or a bad
but in my head, a bad movie only lasts an hour. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that is true. Plus now as well, you can literally, well, I'm terrible for this, but like you just get the button and you're just like moving it on straight to the next scene. I know what's happening in that scene, so I haven't watched, and I just move it on. And it's if I'm watching a film with anyone, they're like, that is so annoying, but I'm just like, oh, we already know what's going to happen, so we might as well just like get cut to the chase quicker, like.
So where do you find yourself in the future working? What's the next project, I suppose?
Well,
is it this play?
Trying to stay doing what I'm doing now, but just trying to this play. I want to get it up and running. I'd like to hopefully give Paddy Goes to Petra a few more dates, because we did do a lot of work on that play. So I definitely like to see that kind of have a bit more of a life. Just write a few more things, maybe try and finish this children's story if I can. And then I've a lot of bits of writing that the way they're half done, or they're like 40% done or 60% done, and then I come up with these random ideas then sometimes, but like I'm like, oh, that's great, but obviously it takes so much time then to really flesh it out. So I have enough ideas at the moment to like kind of make some more things, But yeah, my immediate things are hopefully the short film in August. Then get this play hopefully up and running, or just at least try and get it on, like get it into someone else's hands to produce it. And other than that, I might try and see, can I start writing longer length other than shorts? I'd love to just finish a proper screenplay that would be a full length thing, or even just try and write like an episode of a TV, like something
that's
like
one thing,
series or something, because that's something I haven't really done yet. So that would be a good thing to aim for. But yeah, I definitely want to write a good lot more plays in the future that I can just even for practice, even to improve. Because like I said, there's ideas there that are like 60% done or whatever, and it's a pity just leave them at that. Like it would be nice to finish them, but then new ideas come in and they take over, and sometimes other things are
prioritized
away.
Yeah.
What about you? Are you working on anything new at the moment now?
New. Yeah, no, new. I am tipping away, just writing a little bit here and there, adding to it's more of like a stream of consciousness that I will manipulate in certain ways, and hopefully I'll manipulate it into a stage thing, because I miss the stage in that sense. Like I do want to do screen work, but I do miss creating something for the stage and getting actually stepping onto the stage, because I do feel rather comfortable on the stage. And other than that, probably music later in the year. That's about it.
Oh yeah, you hear music as well, and it's so good. We're kind of planning talent.
No, no, but I think so. I think that's going to be the next. In my head, that's the next thing I can see is music. So a music project, and the other writing project is something that will hopefully flourish.
Okay, that's really good. Yeah, I don't forget because I often listen to you on Spotify. But like, that's the thing is, like, often when you've so many different things, like, it is not that it's hard, but you're trying to kind of keep them all, like, because you love them all. That's the thing. People are like, well, why don't you just concentrate on that? But it's like, you can't just do that. Like it's kind of, you love them all, so you're trying to give them all a bit of attention.
When you create, you're creating for everything at once. There's always something creating for that. There's always something going on for that.
Exactly, and they do help each other. They do definitely all feed into each other. But it's amazing. Like obviously, some people, they just focus on one thing, and they're not into anything else, and like that's great for them. But there are so many people like that are into so many different things. Like I would, not that I'm bigging myself up or anything, but I would consider myself like that, and you're like that like you'd have a load of different things that you're kind of interested in. And it's hard to just say, sorry, no more. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, that's it, just concentrate on like theater and screen type things, rather than trying to do prose now as well. But then it's like, but I enjoy that. And it's like, if a story comes to that, and that's probably the same with music and all of those things. And I have another friend, we were laughing about it recently because he's also into music, and he was like, he's like, I'm trying to fund my music career by a film. Like he was like, what a ridiculous concept, but like that's what I'm trying to do.
Oh God. It used to be you're trying to fund your theater career with film, and now it's you're trying to film your theater career with film, while it's trying to film your music career with film, and then your music career with commercial. Oh, it's fucking madness.
It's mad. But that's the way the world is, I guess, now.
That is it. It's always fantastic, Shandy. I always end up in an invigoration of creation. That's what I always find.
We have to meet soon in person again.
Oh no, absolutely. Hopefully when you get back from Colombia, if you haven't moved.
Yeah, I know. But I do intend on hopefully going there for a good stint, because it would just be nice, especially after. Well, the good thing about the pandemic has been I've been to places in Ireland I haven't been before. Which is great, like a chance to like fully cover kind of the country, and that's been good because there's always a few little kind of like places I hadn't been previously, but now I'm starting to conquer them all, so that's good.
No, absolutely.
And as I said, sorry, go on.
Oh, go for it.
No, I was going to say, as I said, I'm waiting to read your book now.
Start it.
Read it, and congrats on that.
Take it with a pinch of salt. There's a bit of theatre and scattered writings.
That's brilliant. That's wonderful. That's lovely.
I appreciate it. Hopefully you take something from it. That's the main thing.
Okay.
If you take one piece from it, I'll be happy.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's all you want. Yeah.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Joe.
Hopefully it's a creative day. I always enjoy creative days.
It will be. Yeah, it will be definitely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right here, right then. Right here, right then.